New York and live from Miami. You already know what it is. Dinner at the Roundtable Podcast, man, live every Monday at 8 p.m. We're a little bit late today, but we got a special guest on the show, the Cheese Master. Chris, try to introduce our guest.
I want to introduce my good friend, Pat Molinari. Say hi to the people, Pat.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me here, guys.
So Pat, first we want to get into who Pat Molinari is. Just give a little brief intro to the people who you are, and then we'll get into the accoutrement, if you say, of cheese.
Sure. So my name's Pat. I work on the kind of retail grocery side, specifically in deli cheese. So cured meats, cheeses, some dairy, milk, butter, dairy, yogurt, eggs. I grew up in New York City. Like they said, I'm currently calling in from Miami, Florida. Kind of lived a little bit all over the United States of America, studying and working with cheese.
So let's get into the art of cheese. So what is cheese?
In the simplest capacity, it's milk that's been separated, and you either eat it fresh or you ferment it.
Yeah.
So basically, an animal, you would have an animal, and in the simplest, mathematical way to talk about it is that if a cow made a gallon of milk a day, you owned a cow and made a gallon of milk a day, there's no way you could drink that gallon. So how would you go about preserving that milk pre refrigeration, because cheese dates back way before we had, indoor electricity or any sort of, mechanical technology that we have now. So you started to ferment things. You fermented meat, you fermented, grape juice, you made wine, and you fermented milk because it's something that was in abundance. Fermented vegetables as well. We made pickles, kimchi, all of that stuff dates back to pre-refrigeration. So how would you make sure you got the most out of the resources so that you weren't throwing anything away?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Mamma mia.
Mamma mia. But your last name, I know that I have Italian descent, correct?
Yeah. I'm Italian American. My parents were born here. My grandparents were born there.
Yes, because I did notice that you're very big on mozzarella cheese, right?
Yeah, the good
Instagram.
Yes, is something that we did. So that's basically kind of where Chris and I, began knowing each other, is that we were working at Italy Flatiron on 23rd and 5th. I was the fresh mozzarella maker there. And it was really just an hourly position where you would make fresh cheese and then you would leave. But it kind of, for me, graduated to learning more about cheese kind of as a whole and more about business and the inner workings and runnings of the department. And through Italy, I was able to kind of see the country. I helped open a bunch of stores. I relocated out to Los Angeles. Chris was out there, I think 3 months or 4 months with us out in LA. And then we kind of got in contact back again. I was no longer working for Italy at the time. I was out on a contract in Dallas, helping them with the opening in Dallas. Chris and I kind of reconnected.
And it was funny because, I'm walking through the store in Dallas and all of a sudden I hear, yo, Chris. I'm like, what? What you doing here, Pat? What's going on? It was, I saw a lot of people that I didn't expect to see in Dallas. And then, so Pat was there to kind of like help set up the mozzarella program there. And basically, let's go into what the process and how you make really proper mozzarella, because a lot of people don't really know how to make it properly.
Yeah.
Yes. So basically, there's the saying is that like mozzarella should be eaten as close to the pot that it was made in as possible. So, if someone's making it fresh and handing it to you to eat, you should eat it right there. So basically, you start with cow's milk curds. So milk has two parts. It's got curds and whey. We kind of know that from the nursery rhyme, like Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet eating her curds and whey. So when you heat milk up, the fats and proteins bond and the liquid runs off. That's the whey part. The curds are what remains. It's what majority of cheeses are made out of. So you take those fresh curds, you cut them into small pieces about the size of a playing card or a postage stamp, something with high surface area. So when you go to heat it up, it heats evenly and it heats quickly because you don't want to cook out the fat that's present in the milk. You want that because you want to capture that. You want to make really creamy cheese that's delicious. So you heat it up until it's kind of malleable in texture, like taffy, like gum, kind of falls over itself. It's very elastic. And then you push it back together, excuse me, and then you smooth out the lumps, because curds are kind of lumpy. I would compare them to like compacted rice if you needed something for comparison. You want those bumps smoothed out because they're not gonna give you a good texture when you eat the cheese. So you smooth out the lumps and then you shape it into balls, or what it traditionally is made out of. So you see them all different sizes, pound pieces, five. A lot of times you go into a deli counter in New York, they've got it wrapped in plastic wrap, kind of just sitting right on top of the deli counter, not even refrigerated. And then you cool it in cold water. And what that cold water does is help set the shape. It doesn't change anything, kind of chemically or organically about the cheese, but besides helps stay in that aesthetically pleasing ball shape, which is the tradition that a lot of people are looking for.
It helps mold like the shape that you basically turned it into, right? Correct?
Right.
Make a square shape and lets it stay squared. If you make a round shape.
So it's basically kind of how I would compare it. It's going to take whatever shape it's in, unless it's cooled off. So if you were to put it hot into something, it's going to mold into a baking tray. It will mold into a loaf pan, whatever you want to do it. But if you shape it and cool it, it's going to remain in that shape. But they make all sorts of incredible small pieces that they call ciliegine, which are small cherry tomato size with a really tiny kind of pearl sized ones. They make ciliegine, bocconcini, which are mouth sized. And then they make ovoline, which are about the size of an egg, like a ovo or huevo. And then all the way up to whatever you're looking for. They make braids. They call them treccione. So really, since it's such a malleable cheese, you see them in all sorts of shapes. It's bizarre. In Staten Island, where I grew up, one of the cheese guys is famous for making them look like Easter bunnies. He's got like a little Easter bunny mold, and he throws the cheese in there. It's a little gross when you think about it. It's just like a loaf of mozzarella that's the size of an Easter bunny. But people love it, man. And like, whatever, your thing is your thing. If that's what you get famous for, you gotta keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, I'm definitely big on that. So we got the evil cheese master here. Welcome, Patty Pat.
Oh no.
But me, like, my favorite cheese is Fontina cheese. I love it. I actually bought half of a block earlier, and I because I knew you was coming on. Like, you know what? Let me get some cheese in me. That didn't sound right, but you know what I meant. But pause that. But what does it take to become a cheese master? Is that, how do you become a cheese master for those cheesy people who want to perfect the game or become a cheese master as yourself?
Yeah, so I certainly don't feel like I have the game perfected, but I definitely, think that I've learned a lot, and I've practiced good practices. So that's kind of one thing that you got to be aware, be conscious, and then work with the stuff. You know what I mean? Try something new, see what's out there, do a little bit of research. There are some exams. It's actually really cool. There's a society called the American Cheese Society. They're called the ACS, and they have an exam called the CCP, which stands for Certified Cheese Professional, where you go to an event. And it's really cool because they do the best cheeses in America, and they taste. They have judges. They taste, and they award a cheese in America to be the named the best cheese, best in show. Within that, though, they also give the tests, so people are able to go and kind of test their knowledge and find out whether or not they are a certified cheese professional or not. It's new. It's the first of its kind. It's not that new. It's been around close to a decade. Maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit short. Forgive me if I don't know exactly, but kind of like the court masters where you have certified sommeliers, they're working to grow to a capacity where someone can get a certificate of their knowledge, where we can understand them as a professional in their field.
Awesome.
Headshot.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I always wondered what the whole process was. I mean, I love cheese. My favorite cheese is Fontina cheese, but also cheddar cheese. I was able to do a little research. I mean, I already had a little bit of a knowledge on it because I do work in the industry, but I did a little research, and turns out to be this sharp cheddar is the most popular cheese. In your opinion, what would be the most popular cheese?
So probably, off the top of my head, I'd probably say Parmigiano Reggiano. You want to talk about that. They officially dubbed themselves the undisputed king of cheeses.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah, that's their slogan, their catchphrase. So, if you're going to call yourself that, definitely got to be, up there. So I would say mozzarella is definitely provolone, consumed quite a bit. Parmigiano Reggiano definitely up there in the top 5, top 10 greatest cheeses in the world.
Yeah, for sure. What's the weirdest cheese you ever tasted?
Okay, so this is something that kind of I go back and forth with a lot. As much as you have to be adventurous, you have to kind of be able to eat anything that you that kind of comes across you, and you think this isn't fermented milk, so it's not necessarily for the faint of heart. And so we used to get these phenomenal blue cheeses called Blue Del Rey, and they would come wrapped in leaves that had been emaciated in brandy. Kind of smelled like whale blubber or perfume, and had this greasy texture. Obscured to cheese, when you put it in your mouth, basically your whole mouth felt like it was coated in butter fat, and you're just like, what are these flavors and this texture? And then I don't know if I should swallow this or, so it's really, really interesting. I loved it. It didn't go over well, within my household. It wasn't received very well. But as you eat more of the regular everyday things that are world class or very, very high quality, you kind of you extrapolate more into weird things to kind of engage yourself, as opposed to, sticking with the run of the mill stuff, which is incredible, but not necessarily my go-tos.
I've been to like wine tasting events and with cheese, right? And it's been known that wine helps enhance the taste of the cheese. Is that something that's correct? Is accurate?
Yeah.
And vice versa?
Yeah, so that's what we call pairing. You know what I mean? You talk about pairing things. You talk about flavors that go together and either highlight each other, or, the other thing that things do is they prepare you for the flavors that you're going to experience. Something that might not seem as bright or might seem too tart or too tannic or anything like that. Those two flavors working together highlight the good parts of each other and potentially cancel out the kind of rough parts. You think about it as a square. A square's got some rough edges, but if you had sandpaper to kind of smooth off those corners, and then your perfect pairing is going to get all of those flavors kind of perfectly round, and it's gonna just be a real smooth globe sphere of flavor, within my analogy, that kind of helps elevate all of that. You get a perfectly paired wine tasting. You go to like a chef's tasting, a 6 or 7 course thing that's got a wine pairing and everything kind of all set up for you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Listen, when I was done there, I came out like kind of crazy because I drank so much wine. So I was like,
fatality.
Almost had a fatality. Luckily, I was able to make it home okay. I had a designated driver.
The GTA, MTA is the great designated driver. You know what I mean? You just hop on the subway.
Right? It's going your way.
Right.
Their slogan is going your way. Might as well use it, right?
Right.
There's one thing that this guy is never allowed to drink ever again on this show, and that's Cavassier.
Come on.
We have a lost episode called Cavassier, and that's because Nell has like this alternate personality called Suge Nell. He gets all like aggressive and like
I guess so.
Crazy, and then banging on wood and tables and getting aggressive and all that.
I was trying to get a point across, and then the fact that I was under the influence of alcohol made me get like a little bit more aggressive on making my point. But I guess Chris Ryder,
and that's the thing too, that a lot of people, when they're not from New York, and they don't know who we are and they don't speak our language, I think wow, why are you always mad for? Wow, it's like
we're considered the tough guys of the country, right? In Chicago too, Chicagoans are tough too.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that yourself now and being in Florida? You kind of come off as a little bit aggressive or arrogant sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, communication, you definitely got to be aware or conscious of your tone, so that someone's not like, whoa, why are you yelling at me? And it's like, no, I'm just a loud human being,
Yeah, I'm just a New Yorker. I do this all the time over there. What's going on?
Yeah, like when me and Pat was in Dallas and we would talk to each other, everybody would look at us like,
these guys are killing each other over there. Everybody thought you guys were having an argument, right, Pat?
Absolutely.
You guys just having a normal conversation.
I have a story where I went to like the pasta section where Dan was. I looked at Dan and I told him something, and he was like, "Yeah, no problem." So I walked away. So all his people were like, why is he mad? Why is he angry? Why is he like this? And he's like, he's from New York. Don't worry about it.
But you lucky they ain't called the FBI on you, brother.
FBI, open up! FBI, open up!
Get down on the floor, Chris Spider. You're like, I'm only from New York. Please leave me alone.
It's funny that you actually mentioned Fontina cheese, Nelson, because we have it's called a Involtini del Manzo, where we wrap up, we take a flank steak, we butterfly it open, we put Fontina cheese, which that's the first time I tasted Fontina cheese, and it was good. Then we put prosciutto, then we put arugula, then we kind of like sort of like roll it, so it's like it looks like a pinwheel. And that was the first time I actually got to taste Fontina cheese.
So what's your experience with it? You think it's a great cheese?
It's really great cheese.
What's your favorite cheese, Patrick?
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Don't say mozzarella because we know you're a mozzarella head, but
it depends. It really depends on application. You know what I mean? So I keep like 4 or 5 cheeses just in my wheelhouse within reach, depending on what I'm doing. You know, you talk about grating on pasta. There's 2 or 3 cheeses for that. Am I making a sandwich? Am I, mixing it in with rice? Fontina, really, really interesting. You mentioned both Fontina and cheddar. Both of those are protected cheeses. So there's a lot of replicas or things that have taken the namesake that are kind of imitations. But, you get a real Fontina cheese, comes with the letters DOP at the end of it.
Yes.
Which means Denominazione Origine Protetta, protected denomination of origin. So there's a group of people in Italy, in Val d'Aosta, where Fontina comes from. It's the north, kind of where Switzerland dips down into the north of the country.
Yes.
And there was a group of people called the consortium, and they protect the tradition. So the cows have to be raised a certain way, the milk has to be made a certain way, and the cheese has to be made a certain way. And that's a really cool, interesting portion of culture that happens a lot through Europe and a lot overseas that we don't really have here in the United States. So when you talk about protected products that are American, we don't. We take pride in a lot of our products, but we don't have any actual protections on them. The closest you would probably see where things are kind of kept by the book would be bourbon that's made in Kentucky, or really bourbon has to be made in the United States to be considered bourbon. Or Idaho potatoes have a known identity, but they're not necessarily protected. But Italians protect everything. San Marzano tomatoes are a protected type of tomato.
Wines too.
Yeah. Between grape types and then processes, barrel, how long on barrel, how long on in bottle, like a lot of that. So it's really interesting. I think eventually we'll get there to some American things that we protect. Yeah. But I don't think that we're there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is necessary because there's certain trades and certain things that are specializations that should be protected. You're right. I definitely agree with you on that. Should definitely step it up.
We're talking about New York culture. You know what I mean? You talk about keeping the economy of a tradition. There's something that is particular about these places, and a lot of Italy happens to be cheese. You know what I mean? So they wanted to make sure that the world recognized that location for what it was creating, for its contribution to the world. And they cared enough to really say, look, we do this here. If you want to do it, you have to do it here. If you want to do it elsewhere, you can't call it what we call it. Champagne, Champagne has got to be from the Champagne region, and otherwise it's sparkling wine. And this is a really interesting thing that I love to talk about, because a lot of people don't realize that they've either been getting sold a lie, or they've been paying a premium for something, but don't understand why Parmigiano Reggiano is so expensive, or why Champagne is $60 a bottle, but I can get Andre for $4.99. Everybody's had.
Yeah, it's like,
and, speak of the fact that you said New York is such a particular places that us who are true New Yorkers are becoming a dying breed, where we're not as affluent as we used to be, because our city is kind of dying in a sense. Well, the actual culture of it, the true New Yorkers.
I think that
we're moving out like Billy Joel. I'm moving out.
Yeah, you can catch us in Narragansett. somewhere out in Montauk, wherever you want to call us. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think about that too with how transient people move for work, the availability of housing costs, whatever. New York is not cheap, but there's a lot of really well-paying jobs in New York. So people come from the middle of nowhere and they make, whatever, six figures, X amount of dollars, and they come in, but they don't have the same culture that New York had, and it's not their fault, but it also is definitely kind of, individuality is definitely dying as people kind of intermingle a little bit.
So Pat, let's talk about let's say, so in a typical like Italy counter, how many cheeses will they carry? That's just an example of like how many different types there are.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't work for them, per se anymore, but we always used to use the analogy, the phrasing that we carry 1,000 SKUs products per year, but we probably have between 350 and 450 on hand at any given time. So cheese has seasonality. There's certain things that aren't available in certain times of the year. Fresh cheeses, you never know what you're going to get because, again, what's not made domestically, Italy in itself is either artisanal American cheeses or Italian cheeses. So you might not be able to get a fresh cheese out of Italy the moment it's made or before it's consumed in its region. If they could make the investment back, or if they could, make somebody in their town happy, they're going to sell it to them as opposed to putting it on a shipping container or on an airplane. So a big hefty amount of cheeses that we would have really would be hard pressed to find anything Italian that wasn't present, and or anything that you had that was domestically made, or American made, that we either didn't have or know who had it and how we could get it. You might come in today and it might not be available, but if you wait on us, we'll be able to get it for you.
Yeah, Pat, a real quick question. In your opinion, given the new green generation and all these people being allergic to stuff and stuff like that, I know dairy has been, received a big hit in a sense, right? A lot of people have eczema, psoriasis, they're allergic to dairy products. How has that affected the cheese industry, in your opinion?
Oh my goodness. So a couple things. One is with the pasteurized, unpasteurized, which has been an argument as long as time has existed, since pasteurization has existed. Whether or not it's safe for young children, old people, pregnant women to consume unpasteurized cheeses. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I do know that, these cheeses had been consumed by old people, young people, pregnant women, for generations and generations. Now, am I to say that any, unfortunate fatalities regarding those were not unjustly accredited to pasteurized cheese or unpasteurized cheese? I can't say. So I definitely think that you should err on the side of caution in terms of that. Now with dairy alternatives, man, dairy alternatives are everywhere. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. Cashew, oat. Since we've had dairy alternatives, we've had almond and soy and coconut, and people are making cheese out of them, man. People are making butter out of them. It's incredible.
Almond cheese. I had almond cheese the other day.
I can't believe it's not butter, but I can't believe it's not milk. You know what I mean? Like it's real, and it's really cool, and it really helps whatever dietary restrictions. People say I don't want to eat dairy. I'm going on the Whole30. I can't eat dairy, but I can't live without butter. Chickpea, garbanzo bean, butters, man. It's incredible. It's really, really, really cool. So I think that if anything, as long as they work together, the industries work together, they're going to be able to kind of blow this thing out of proportion. They're going to win on both sides, because if we want to really, really talk about who's behind it all, it's the same guys on both sides. The guys that make your Dannon yogurt are making your dairy alternative because they've got the finances to kind of back another production and not go under.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. You think Chris Ryder might get a serial killer cheese out soon?
Let me put you on to the history.
So real quick, he's a gory chef. So we have this thing on the show where we have this and also that we know him for a long time. he has some weird like anger tantrums that go on with him, right? He always has like a serious face. You don't know whether to approach him or not. So we call him a serial killer on the show.
So I always say this to people: when you grow up, when we grew up, is either you a wolf or you're a sheep. So sometimes if you don't want to fight somebody, you got to put on that look to make them think that you're gonna kill them, and sometimes that look don't go away.
Yeah.
After so it becomes a part of who you are. Because if you don't walk through the streets of New York like you're about to kill somebody, you're gonna get your ass kicked 9 out of 10 times.
Well,
So,
anyway, each time I stare at Chris right in the face, all I hear is this. Have you experienced that, Pat?
Yeah, you see his eyes get all wide.
Pat see me mad, like super mad.
Pat was like, "What's wrong with this guy here?"
In a working capacity, he starts throwing
he's
shit.
like, eat some cheese, buddy. Calm down.
I threw a little mini tantrum today. I like threw shit on my walk-in because they fucked me up, and I was just like so fucking mad. I was like, these motherfuckers.
If they only knew how fast you could jig him with a knife.
All that. But Pat, going back to cheese, there's a couple questions I have.
Yeah.
Let's get curious.
How many different types of cheeses are there actually?
Millions. It's impossible to know. People are making, think about it. There's villages of 6 or 7 people. They got one animal. They're making whatever cheese they come up with. Like you'll never know. More than 1,000, more than 100,000, close to more than 1 million, I'd say.
So what's the top 5 like types of cheeses that
According to ranker.com, you want me to go by the ranker.com and then you could debunk it?
Yeah.
So by ranker.com keeps tracks of they rank stuff like general stuff like food and
some
everything.
sort of statistical ranking website.
Yeah, they interview 5,000 people and then they get a statistic. Right? So like earlier I told you sharp cheddar is number 1. Let me know if I'm pronouncing it right. Gouda cheese.
Gouda
cheese. Then you got regular cheddar cheese, mozzarella cheese, and pepper jack cheese, top 5.
Right.
Then, Parmigiano Reggiano, cream cheese, English farmhouse cheddar, Monterey Jack, and then Parmigiano, top 10.
Right. So I mean, definitely seems like a pretty accurate list. Sharp cheddar cheese is in everything. You get a mac and cheese at a Stop and Shop, a Fairway, whatever you want. Like that's what's going to be one of the cheeses in there. But yeah, I mean, top 5 cheeses, like according to who? According to me, according to consumption. Like it's really interesting. But mozzarella is definitely up there. Provolone definitely seems to be up there. Hot pepper jack, like the sandwich industry. Remember, like sandwich industry could boost those numbers real quick.
Yeah, right.
So
you know what? So let's do this. I'm sorry, Chris Ryder. Let's do this. Let's bring in Pat's top 10. Exclusively at the round table. Pat brings his top 10 cheeses of all time. The Cheese Master will cheese you up. Let's get serious. Instead of serious, cheeserious. Cheeserious. Cheerious?
Jesus,
I don't know.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus
You guys
Christ.
are ridiculous.
Jesus Christ. I like that one. Jesus Christ. I like
You have
Hey,
it.
I didn't invent it.
Exclusively in Dinner at the Roundtable podcast, our Cheese Master Pat to let us know the top 10 in his opinion. Come on, Pat, let it rip.
All right, so in no particular order, I'm just going to name 10 cheeses that are always kind of within my wheelhouse, things that I'm eating. So we're going to go Parm and mozzarella for sure. We're going to go with Comté, which is a French cave-aged cheese. Very, very incredible. Gruyere Manchego. So that's 5. We're going to go Brie and Taleggio. Those two are kind of Brie, obviously super creamy, super ripe. And then Taleggio is a washed grinded cheese. It's kind of like a funky Brie if you think about it in the incredibly macro scale. You know what I mean? Like, and let's see what else we got going on. I love a good raclette. We'll go cheddar. There's cloth bound cheddars. They're really, really interesting. I love those. And let's see. I don't know. It's a toss. I gave you 9. I wasn't expecting 10. I was expecting 5. So you got
I
9.
put you in the spot there, buddy. Sorry about that. But there you have it, man. That was Pat's top cheeses. That's the evil cheese master laugh. But yeah, man, sounds good. I mean, I appreciate you letting us know. What's the deal with the cheeses? Chris said he had a question for him right before I rudely interrupted you. Sorry about that.
His eyes just got all wide.
I know, right? Like,
I'm just kidding.
he had a freaking a butcher knife ready to throw it at me at the screen.
So it's fermentation is actually like a very interesting topic of discussion, because when you think about cheese, you think about how they had to take milk and they had to sort of preserve it in a sense. It's the same thing with like dry aged beef. Somebody along the lines figured out that if you take a certain piece and you have enough fat around it, you can put it into a special fridge where it's airy and it's there's not too much humidity, and then you can age something to the point where it becomes much better, and it's something that instead of it going bad right away, you can stretch it out for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. With beer, it was, it's fermentation. Wine, same thing. So cheese is fermentation. So talk about the process of how you take milk and to the point where it gets to cheese, like the process behind it, so people can understand exactly how cheese is made from point A to point B to point C.
So discuss the process.
Yeah, so like again, oversimplifying, the process. You start with milk. Again, you're going to separate the milk. You're going to have your curds. Now, how do you make those curds last a long time where they're still safe for consumption, that they're not going to get you sick, even though they potentially have been sitting out, So this is like, I don't know how they figured it out. Basically, I'm going to assume that they were hungry and they ate stuff anyway. And a lot of people, unfortunately, got the bad end of that deal. And so basically, in the simplest of analogies and descriptions, if you take culture, if you take microbes or bacteria, which is what's going to cause your fermentation, and they're stronger than any sort of bad bacteria that would grow, it's going to eat that and change portions of the milk, the curds, and add flavor, change texture, and theoretically keep them safe to eat. Again, oversimplification, but so long as you have good, happy bacteria that are eating bad bacteria that are malicious or whatever, they're going to make it safe for you to eat. And depending on moisture, water is a huge part in spoilage. So if you have less moisture, things are less likely to rot. So then you can age things out a longer period of time if you have less moisture. Fresher things that are fermented, you should still eat fast, just kind of like dry aged beef, still has a lot of moisture in it. So that water is a potential for danger, for harm, or for bad bacteria growth.
Yeah. I mean, even with aged beef, you can go up to a year to eat beef that's been aging for a year, even though it might start out this big. I don't know if you can see my hands in the camera. And then by the time that's in a year, it's like right here.
Right, you're going to lose all that water weight.
But that thing is going to be, I mean, to me, I like dry aged beef that's at around 30 to 35 days. Anything over 40, you get to the 60, it becomes too funky, and it's like...
It's too funky. So this is the same concept with cheese. If something goes for too long, it's not ideal to eat. It might still be safe to eat, but it might not have the flavor profile, the texture, the moisture content, anything that you might lose too much. It might not be economical to hold on. Remember, you're dry aging something for a year, you got to hold it. So you milked a cow today, you're not going to sell that cheese for a year, and you're going to lose 50% of it, 60% of it. What's that cheese going to cost? Your maintenance, you got to care for it, you got to house it, and then you got to make back the difference of the loss. That's not sustainable as a business model.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I think the oldest I ever had was like 90 days, and it was too funky. We were in LA, and I think like,
funky cheese.
We left a little bit too long.
He's talking about funky beef.
Oh, funky beef.
Funky. I mean, that's pretty much what a lot of people don't understand is that aged beef is really just beef that's controlled. It's controlled spoilage, so you're not going to eat the outside, even though some people do eat that. And to be honest with you, I've always taught that you trim all.
Trim that. Yeah, you can see where it's veins in.
Come on, people, trim it.
Or they eat it. They'll eat that shit like that. I'm like, oh, how could you? I mean, to be honest,
man.
that's just me.
Sometimes, man, when hunger strikes, you eat what you gotta eat, brother.
So I know for me, the most expensive piece of meat that you can probably get.
Hey, yo, pause that. That's
right now is Japanese A5, which is the highest grade. Which is you know anywhere you go, you're gonna pay for a ribeye or in New York, you're paying at least $100 to $130 a pound for it.
Wow,
that's pure A5, and that's just because you're paying for the international, importation in a sense. That's why you're paying a high price. But if you go to Japan, that A5 is probably going to be around the $30 range that you will find here in the US. But
again, like, so that's the benefit of buying something fresh. You talk about a butcher counter, you're going to talk about a fresh counter. Yeah. As much as cheese is fresh, it's still fermented. So the benefit of buying that stuff where it's made is the same idea as buying fresh mozzarella where it's made. I want my butcher to be down the block. I want to know the name of the cow and when it goes to the slaughterhouse and who processes it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I want to make sure my steaks are fresh. But these cows, that we're talking about, Japanese, they live better lives than we do. Some of them, they get a manicure, they get pedicure, they get their hair.
They get pampered. They get pampered.
You guys are from Uptown, okay? You guys are hard lives.
I'll do his nail, do the nails, get a manicure, pedicure.
Pure A5 beef, you can eat that shit. You can cut that shit with a spoon once it's cooked. But the point of my question was, Pat, what's the most expensive cheese you've ever seen?
Ooh, baby.
Ooh. So this goes more to bad business practice than like the reality of the cost of things. But you can see people charge whatever they want. You know what people are taxing. So I've seen some cheese with a 3-figure price tag on it, $100 a pound. But most like any cheese that you find between 15 and 30, I consider fair price. I know that kind of seems outlandish. 15 and 30 a pound. A pound of cheese is a lot of cheese.
Wow.
But it becomes really hard to compete. Not to call out anybody, but like Land O'Lakes, Yellow American, you got $3.99 a pound, $4.99 a pound. So a lot of people get sticker shock when they see a cheese cost $15 a pound. They say, "Oh, your cheese is so expensive." And what they don't realize again is that their cheese is so cheap. And they don't realize what's in that cheese that's making it cheap. What are they adding to it? What are they doing to it? What are they doing to the farms? What kind of grass are the cows eating? Are they eating grain? What's making the milk? Is the milk a high quality? That you can't feasibly create a product that costs $4 a pound that could be good for you to consume. But people realize that it's not good for their wallet to kind of consume $15 a pound. So in their mind, they say that's expensive, as opposed to saying what I'm eating is cheap.
Yeah.
The same with milk. Milk gallon prices. You see $3 a gallon, $3.50 a gallon, and then when you talk about organic, everything, well, the highest quality, $16 a gallon. So this is what a gallon of milk costs, man. Like I'm again, there's a middle ground. I'm not saying that everybody should shell out and live amongst their means, but your body's got to be one of your biggest investments.
Yeah.
It's got to last you your whole life.
I mean, absolutely. Yeah. I'm sorry, Pat.
No. I was gonna say, within that, like literally any free cent I have goes to kind of improving the things I consume.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you.
Mamma mia!
And yeah, I mean, I'm like, the thing is, people think like, okay, it's affecting your pockets now because it's too expensive to purchase that item. But then think about, is it going to affect your pockets in the future when you're sick?
Healthcare costs, you know what I mean? Diabetes, I mean, anything.
Yeah.
I had a kid that I work with. We were talking about like chicken prices and stuff like that. And he's like, "Oh yeah,
chicken fights? What the hell?
Chicken prices."
Oh, you said chicken fights. Like, what the hell?
No, so out here in Texas, there's one of the biggest supermarket chains is Kroger.
Yeah, the whole country. A lot of Kroger everywhere, but they are under different names.
Yeah, so He's like, yeah, well, they got, chicken thighs or chicken legs for like 99 cents a pound. I told him, if you go to a supermarket and you see chicken priced at that much, that means that chicken has been fucked up. And you shouldn't even remotely, if you could afford not to pay for that, don't pay for it, because if that person's paying 99 cents a pound for that, they're buying it for 29 cents a pound. And that
Right.
means that is shit.
That's the worst of the
Same
worst.
with anything else.
Jeez, I can't even imagine the process of of a chicken that's so cheap like that. But yeah, I mean, in your opinion, Pat, how detrimental is somebody purchasing cheese that's low quality versus high quality cheese, as you spoke of? How detrimental is that to their health?
Yeah, I mean, kind of with anything, I think that if you make an increased investment into the things that you're consuming, you probably get better longevity out of yourself, your body, your life. It depends in excess how much, but I always find with higher quality things, I use less of them. So kind of with toilet paper, I could buy cheap toilet paper, I burn through rolls, but if I get a good quality toilet paper, it lasts a little bit longer because I don't have to use as much. So same deal with cheese, with olive oil, with good wine, a good bottle of wine. You savor it, you like it, it lasts a little bit longer for whatever reason. And so I don't have to put as much of my high quality cheese because I get the flavor that I'm looking for. I get that cheesiness that I'm looking for. But heart disease, man, and the things that are put, white sugar is like a poison.
It is.
Oils and emulsifiers, all these coagulants, they force milk to look like cheese and tell you that it's cheese, but that's not what it is.
Yeah.
So you're eating a lot of things and you can't figure out why you feel sick every time you eat cheese. You say, oh, I must be lactose intolerant, but you're not really consuming much milk to begin with. You're consuming a lot of additives that probably are what are making you feel lousy. So it's just really interesting. I can't back any sort of data. I can't make any sort of claims, but I definitely would say that cheap ingredients and commodity ingredients, low priced things that are potentially low quality could really be detrimental to the average consumer.
I mean, it's a proven fact that things that have a lot of preservatives in it are not good for you. You know what I mean? It's just a proven fact. I read this article, and maybe you probably heard about it. Kraft American cheese. They use like wood chips to like maintain the cheese or something. Like they it's part of the process.
They use sawdust to keep it together. So basically, when you put breadcrumbs in your meatballs so that your meatballs don't break, same deal with your Kraft American cheese. They use sawdust to keep those slices together.
Oh, so
it's wood particles. It's
wood particles. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Sawdust. Yeah. Sawdust.
That's exactly insane. That. I mean, how insane is that? Is that I mean that has to affect your health some way or another.
We can't eat wood
long term, right?
We can't eat. Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're not beavers. You know what I mean?
Like, so this is what's great. Kind of you said the green movement. We talk about food transparency. Probably started with the term farm to table. Probably started in some some super straightforward restaurant that was like, look, I don't care about my vendor. The vendors that everyone tells me they have to work with because they're the biggest guys in the game. They say, oh, I'm going to get so-and-so from, Hanover, Pennsylvania to drive me in pigs that he killed, and then I'm going to get my apples from upstate New York, and I'm going to make my own apple chutneys, and I'm going to control my ingredients, and I'm going to put 6 things in it, and all of them are going to be needed, necessary ingredients. And so that's something that's kind of come to light recently, probably within the last 10, 15 years, where people really, really care about what's in their foods. Yes. And I love following that, man. You Instagram is like one of the greatest things that ever happened for food blogging. And you get to contact, you get to kind of loop together and network through all these cool things that are people doing you see it on the other side of the globe. And you're like, whoa, there's like a clean food movement happening in the middle of nowhere to me, but that's somebody's hometown. And it's take down the big guys in the food industry a little bit.
It's awesome. Have you had a chance to, in your cheese experience as a cheese master. Have you had a chance of working with goat cheese as of yet?
Goat cheese?
Yes, goats, like Billy
Yeah,
goat.
yeah. Cabra. Yeah, I've worked with some fresh goat cheeses. So this is something that's interesting. So the goat cheese that's like spreadable and malleable like cream cheese is called fresh chèvre, CHEVRE. And then goat milk is present in a lot of cheeses. They make aged goat's milk cheeses. They make all sorts of goat. Yeah, but yeah. So basically, the four main milks for cheese are goat, cow, sheep, and buffalo.
Buffalo, really?
Yeah, but not
Had no
water
idea.
buffalo like here. There's an indigenous animal in Italy that is a bufala, Bufala. And they make mozzarella di bufala, which is a specific type of mozzarella cheese.
I've seen it before. Yeah.
Actually, so mainly in this country, we're known for cow's milk mozzarella because we can't get the milk from these animals.
Mm-hmm.
And the word mozzarella in Italian is reserved only for mozzarella di bufala. And they actually have a different phrase. It's called fior di latte, which means flower of milk, which is how they refer to cow's milk mozzarella.
Oh, I see. I've heard I'm not sure, maybe you can debunk it or maybe tell me if it's correct. I've always heard that goat milk is 100% goat milk based cheese is healthier than cow, anything that has cow milk. Is that correct?
So it is the leanest of the four milks. So it will have the least butter fat and the lowest lactose content. That said, healthiest, I mean, it depends on your diet. If you're trying to be low fat diet, yeah, you can eat mainly your goat's milk cheese are going to help you get your cheese satisfaction without kind of killing your macros.
Well, I see. Okay.
But some people need those fats. Some people are like, look, I will eat kale all day if it means I get to have a bowl of mozzarella for dinner. And that's how they balance that.
Oh, another great question I have for you. Well, not question because I get all the time I get targeted by my Italian friends. I have a lot of Italian friends. Each time I say mozzarella, they're like, no, it's not mozzarella, it's mozzarella. How does he really pronounce the word? How does he really pronounce it?
No, you're right though. So my fresh market manager Tiziano, he's like from Rome, and they go crazy when you don't pronounce shit the right way. They go crazy nuts.
Yeah, so a lot of that is like Italian American colloquialisms. We want to say prosciutto, we want to say gabagool, we want to say all of these things, and it's really like a regional accent.
What's
so
the gabagool?
They hate that shit.
It's definitely like a New York, New Jersey, Northeast thing. Mozzarella is the word. That's how an Italian would pronounce it. But Ellis Island opened a long time ago. A lot of people came here, and dialects change. People pronounce things different ways.
So
they hate it.
What would be the correct way then, in your opinion?
It depends on who I'm talking to.
Let me tell you something though.
If you're talking to a wise guy, mafioso guy, versus a hardworking Italian or an Italian straight off the island, it's different with dialects, right?
So you're talking about Houston and Houston. We got Houston Street downtown, but if you're in Texas, it's Houston.
It's spelled the same way.
Yeah, it's not. It's like we say coffee. But we say coffee. Let me get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, or people from Brooklyn, they use the R's a lot. Like I got a friend from Brooklyn. He's Italian. He refers to pizza as pizza. They I'm gonna go it's pizza. I'm like, dude, it's pizza. He's like, no, it's pizza. We always go back and forth.
Well, they always say when you say from New York, then they say that again. I'm saying from New York. They go, what? New York. It's a dialect.
New York or New York?
New York. I'm from New York.
Yeah. I guess it all depends on how you was, like what part of this, what part of like the culture you was more used to, I guess.
Of course.
But yeah, that's something I always get. I really get shots at by my Italian friends. They be like, don't say it like that. You say it like this. I'm like, okay, I got it.
Nah, but don't say gabagool to a real Italian like a pew.
They get pissed off.
Yeah, they get pissed off.
I have a friend of mine that his dad was like ex-mobster, or he still probably is. I'm not sure. The whole point is that he would say it like that, gabagool, like. And then when I used to watch the Soprano show, Tony Soprano used to pronounce it like that. He used to be like, "Where's the gabagool?" all the time. So I don't know.
Definitely, Tony Soprano. Those type of people are definitely what perpetuates that accent and that kind of mentality and everything. But
so
to each his own.
Example of that was I was in the. So when you work for my company, there's a mixture. There's the pure Italians, and then there's the Americans. So every store has a great mixture of the two. So conversation, one of the dudes was like, saying, "Let me get a gabagool," and the other Italian was like, "Don't hurt my ears. You're gonna make them bleed." So that's the interesting aspect of it. And they hate like Alfredo. Don't mention Alfredo to them. They hate that shit. It's not a good thing because Americans, they come in, they're like, "Oh, where's the Alfredo sauce?" But they don't realize that that's not Italian. That's American Italian.
Yes. It's crazy, man. It's insane. Like I don't know, Cinco de Mayo just passed, right? And a lot of people celebrate it here in the United States, but it's like an American Mexican. It's a Mexican American culture thing, right? In Mexico, They don't celebrate it at all, except in one town, which is Puebla. They celebrated there because they became independent from the French invaders at that time. But the rest of Mexico doesn't celebrate it at all. Like it's an insult to Mexicans. If you tell like a Mexican, like a friend of mine said to him, a Mexican that works in the deli, "Hey, happy Cinco de Mayo." He said, "Don't say that to me. You're offending me, my friend." He was like mad at my friend, right? And I was like, wow. I'm like, you got to do your research before you do talk like that, because not everybody feels the same way.
Another interesting fact. So if you look at the United States, especially Texas, you have a lot of Spanish,
Latinos,
San Antonio, stuff like that. El Paso,
right?
So people don't realize that when Mexico used to stretch a really far, distance. There was Mexicans that became U.S. citizens when they got assimilated. So it's funny because I have a guy who works with me now. He's not Mexican from Mexico. He's a Mexican American from here. So the Tex-Mex concept is, those are Mexicans who became a part of the U.S. when they were taken over. And it's interesting because he's like, yeah, my whole family's from America, but they're Mexicans, but they're from Texas.
Oh, because they're from I see.
And so when they got when they got assimilated from the U.S., there were Mexicans here. That's how the whole Texas Mexican. If you ever go to like a Tex-Mex, it
comes from there.
It's like that's an interesting little nugget.
All right, sounds pretty good, but yeah, man, for sure.
Bada bing, bada boom, bada ba.
Yeah, so Patrick, in your years of being a cheese master, did you ever experience something weird, like a failure or something that you wish you would have known before you got into the cheese making industry? That maybe you can talk about.
Yeah, like in regards to like a professional capacity or in regards to cheese?
Both.
Yeah. So like, given that we were making cheese, we were working with the chef and he wanted to convince that we were going to be able to make dessert mozzarella. We're trying to figure out how to make it sweet, how to make it flavored a certain way.
I'm sorry to interrupt. What the hell is that? What the hell?
It was never done before, so he thought we were going to be revolutionary. He thought literally thought that we were going to be the people that changed the mozzarella world forever.
Sorry, that was like the weirdest thing I've ever heard. But continue. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right. So we were trying to work out how to do this, and we were going to make a chocolate mozzarella. And so tons of trial and error. Do we mix in cocoa powder? You have to boil water. So do we boil the water with the cocoa powder in it and then make the mozzarella with the hot cocoa water? Do we use milk? Do we boil milk to make mozzarella? Chocolate milk, all of these things. I mean, it was, do we marble it in as we're making the cheese? Do we just kind of dust it with cocoa powder? And it did not work. And we ate a lot of really, really nasty mozzarella.
The process must have been insane. It was like
But he was
it was like a
convinced,
mad
man.
scientist working in a lab trying to create a potion or something.
Of course, and like you definitely know that like these guys that reinvent something or invent something new go through a lot of trial. You only see the successes, when something becomes like
Yeah.
whatever. Talk about the iPhone. Like how many iPhones were there before there was the first one? Like he probably tried for a long time. But he probably didn't have to eat nasty mozzarella in order to be successful. But yeah, and then so like what you don't realize is that as you kind of grow professionally, you end up in this really niche corner of the market, where people that do what we do are not really out there. You know what I mean? There's not that the community is very small. And in that, and we talk about dying industries and kind of dying cultures is the cheese counter or alternative cheese. Is the world going to be rocked? Is the cheese counter going to be rocked by alternative cheese? Where potentially in my lifetime, my profession is no longer necessary. People stop consuming animal byproducts or so that's a big question mark that I have. That maybe, I've worked myself into a kind of corner professionally where one swoop and things all change.
Yeah, I mean, earlier when you answered the question about remember I asked you whether the cheese industry got hit hard with the non-dairy stuff. You said that perhaps the same people who make the regular cheese can integrate and it kind of like step up and be okay. We're gonna start making the non-dairy ones. Maybe that would be an option, right? For the cheese masters like yourself to jump into that and take over that industry as well, so it doesn't get lost in the sauce.
Yeah, so if you could just be like an alternative cheesemonger, would be a really cool thing. Somebody walks up to a counter and it's all cashew cheeses or quinoa cheeses, whatever you want to call them, whatever. And I said quinoa. I don't even know if you can make it. I was just thinking about
the grain of the gods as a cheese as well.
So I mean that would be really cool. It's all fermented. Like if they start putting truffles in cashew cheese, like they put truffles in so who knows? There could be the A5 Kobe beef, Wagyu beef of artisanal alternative cheeses.
Yeah,
that people are paying $100 a pound for.
I wonder maybe in the future, like somebody could walk up to a cheese counter and you can make some fresh almond cheese. Just throw a bag of almonds into a blender and just freaking like ferment it real quick and just get it done. And I don't know.
Well, ferment it real quick doesn't go. That's not a sentence. So you can't ferment real quick. You need time.
You gotta leave it a couple of. I gotta leave there for a couple of days, but
let me get some fresh almond cheese. Yeah, come back next week. Okay.
Come back next week.
I don't know, man. My opinion, I think a lot of these like traditional things, they won't ever die.
They won't die completely. I think the market might change.
It's just
the thing is when big corporations come in and they try to like, take out the little guys, they buy everybody out. Sometimes like, you might have a skill set that you're strongly, that you're very passionate about, but then that it's dying out. You have a lot of bills and a lot of things going, a lot of debt. You might consider a big payout for one of those corporate companies that want to take over. So that happens a lot. A lot of people get bought out. A lot of people get bought out just because they have. They got things to take care of, you know what I mean? And that's kind of sad in the sense, but it happens, right? I guess.
Of course. I mean, people with big pockets are able to influence, to whatever capacity they want to. You talk about 11 Madison Park, one of the best restaurants in the world, diagonally across Madison Square Park from Evilly Flatiron. He's going meatless. His whole new menu is not going to have meat. It's one of the best restaurants in the world. So maybe it's just a fad. Maybe it's trendy, but I don't know. Definitely always you got to be prepared for change. Kind of like you said, is that you just kind of see it, and so long as you're paying attention, you kind of anticipate it, and then you don't get caught out where you're unemployable or you don't have a skill set that's pertinent. But also you're acclimated to do a new task, which might not be where your career began.
But I think I felt like there was a really big attack on the meat industry a couple of years ago, but I feel like that's kind of like faded in a sense. Like it's not, where it was before. that's kind of like why I stay in the company for as long as I have, because I feel like we are that middle ground between the craft butchery and the supermarket butchery. We're like right in the middle.
Yeah, I think
And
that you move enough volume, you see enough people where you're able to do a really high quality caliber work at not exorbitant prices. Sometimes it's like, whoa, this is really high quality, but it costs an insane amount. But I think that, given what is done, at Italy, I think that it's definitely possible that you guys offer the best pricing for the best for the cuts that you offer, around.
and people don't understand that aspect of things. It's for me personally, I wanted to open up my own butcher shop. That was one of my dreams. And honestly, over the course of the last, I will say almost 6 months, which it's approaching 6 months now. It's crazy how long that's. January was. You think about
5 months ago, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, but seeing the fact that what it costs to open up a butcher shop and not having that big entity behind you, you realize how quickly, if you don't have the collateral to sustain you over a year, how quickly you can just implode.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something, small businesses have to consider. It's like, if you want to open a small business, are you prepared to not take a paycheck for a year?
Yeah.
Can you do that? Can you?
And is that fair to ask, an entrepreneur, a business person?
It's hard.
And that's another goal too that I want to get on the show is a small business entrepreneur and talk about that aspect of the business.
Yeah.
Fact
Your first year is either going to break you or make you. That's statistically, like business statistics say, right, that the first year is either going to break you or make you. That's when you either going to stay around for a long time or you're not.
Right.
You have to
More businesses fail in the first year than any other year.
Exactly, because you have to capture that person. Because like for me right now, I'm building a customer base.
Yeah.
And
but Chris, you're coming. You mean for your own personal business, or you're talking about where you're at now? Because the company you work for has a big, it's already known.
It has a big base.
Yeah, but not in the demographics where it's at now.
Yeah, but I have to operate my counter as if it's my own.
I see.
In order to build that base, because for me, I'm very competitive. I always want to be the best. I always want to be great at what I do. So when I don't see the results right away, I get frustrated.
It's the killer instinct in you.
I want to be able to be seen as the best in the company. No. When they think about Italy Dallas Butcher Shop, they think about me. They think about we're the best. Period. So when I don't see that results, it's just frustrating for me. But it's all about gaining that base. And I'm learning a lot about the aspect of the other side of the business that I didn't know about.
Well, Chris, you're very fortunate because your store is in Texas, and Texas are by a large number compared to second place. They're first place, number one meat consumers in the whole United States.
But
and then the second is Nebraska. They're very high number compared to Nebraska.
You know what's the difference though? Is that Texas, the problem with the market is that they have big money here, but they don't operate the way they do in New York, where they just splurge and spend money and they don't give a fuck. They think small-minded here. And Pat, you've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the argument, old money versus new money, is whether or not it's materialistic goods or, generational family wealth.
Yes.
Which I think that a lot of people in Texas, especially where that store is located, you're surrounded by three very affluent neighborhoods, little spaces of Dallas, and those people had money before that store was there, and will continue to have money long after
Exactly.
the store is there in existence for a long time. In New York, you get a lot of people, again, like I said, 22 years old, 24 years old on Wall Street. They're making, 6-figure salary. Some of them are making 7-figure salaries, and they can spend $100 on a steak and $500 on a bottle of wine. They don't care.
But out here,
what's the demographics there though? Where the stores at?
No,
what's
but
the medium age range? What's the medium salary? I mean, I'm sure that the
they have
corporate analyze all that before they jumped in there. I mean, they have to have.
But the fact of the matter is, the major difference is that it's like this: you come into my neighborhood, right?
Which neighborhood?
The one you live in, or where the stores
Let
at?
me give you an example. So you come to Texas in a neighborhood. You say,
okay,
I got the best pair of sneakers you'll ever have in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna come to you in Texas. They're gonna say, what makes your sneakers better than what I've gotten before?
Oh, I see. They yes, because they're very traditional. That's why.
What makes you different, or what makes you better than what I've been getting before?
No,
Because what I've been getting has been okay so far.
Yeah. That's the thing with Texans. Texans, they like to be very traditional, and if they've already been accustomed to something, for you to steer them to a different direction, you have to be very convincing.
This is something that I think that humans are just hesitant. I talk about this all the time. It's hard to jump ship on any sort of craft good. A butcher shop. You get a good butcher, you usually bury that butcher. You wait till your butcher dies until you find a new butcher. The same
Barbers too. Barbers too,
man.
It's the same thing with cheese. Same thing with any kind of business model.
Fresh, because you don't want to get screwed. You don't want to spend. Even though it's X amount of dollars, whatever it is, you don't want to feel shortchanged in the long run. You say, "Oh man, I probably shouldn't have gone to so and so's house because so and so's shop because his stuff's not as good."
Most people are gonna go with what works, what they know works already.
What they're comfortable with. You know what I mean? Like, I wear Adidas because I always wore Adidas. They fit nice. I'm comfortable with the price. I'm comfortable with how long they last. And why would I? I buy a pair of New Balance, a pair of Nikes, and I don't feel as good.
I would say for the most part, most people are like that. They're traditional with things that they know work, right? But in Texas, they're pretty hard on that. They're very hard on it. They don't accept change as much because
it's also established.
Yeah,
when you're new in the game, it's like what's going to make you shop with somebody that's new in the game.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's, for me, that's been the challenge, is gaining that respect. And it's been slow going, but we're building towards that. And that's
the store's open 7 months. You guys will be successful, and you're already successful. And I think that you'll continue to grow that success.
Yeah. I think you being the manager of the store, Chris, is gonna be on you, like, to kind of bring that crowd over there. Like, people are gonna go there just because they know that they got a good manager there that's gonna take care of anything that the employees mess up on, this, that, and the third. Sometimes that's
what I do, and that's and for me, that's what I've been trying to do, is anytime my guys see a big spender, I tell them, give them my card and let them know that whatever they need, I'm going to provide it for them. But it's that
shouldn't only be a big spender. It should just be any person that's looking for something in particular, and familiar faces. Turnover is so frequent, especially in these positions, where you lose a big clientele, big portion of your fan base, if they don't see somebody that they recognize. That retention, you retain employees, you retain clientele. People want to see the people they're used to seeing. It's bizarre. Maybe the new guy is just as qualified, but you just want to say, look, I went to the butcher shop. I was looking for Chris. He wasn't there. I don't know what the deal was, so I didn't get anything. And then, maybe it's just a day off. You deserve a day off.
I know, that's a very important, because I had a customer come in today who, when we opened, he was somebody that I kind of saw the potential in, and he came in today. He was like, "Hey, Chris, what's going on?" And I was talking to him, and it was good seeing him. But it's it's that business model of starting your own business and realizing how difficult it is.
Yes.
And if you don't have that machine behind you, it's very difficult. In that first year, it's very important.
I mean, every business has his pros and cons. Like, for instance, Pat, I'll tell you, we have 3 years doing this podcast. It's a whole different scenario. It's not the same thing as dealing with retail, but
Of
we
course.
we had our ups and downs. We had to figure things out. There was times where we wanted to quit. You know what I mean? But then we did more research and we found out different ways to market ourselves, different promotional tools, having better topics, better episodes, and eventually we stuck around and we're still here.
Right. And it's fun, you know what I
So,
mean?
yeah.
You just keep doing your thing, and it's a hobby and something to, and then
And,
it doesn't feel like work if you make it work for you in a
Yeah.
certain capacity.
But I get where Chris is coming from because on a retail based business, there's a lot of money involved. There's
Right.
red, you don't never want to be in the red. You want to be in the positive all the time, right? So it's very hard to maintain, the last month's quote, the last year's quote. You know what I mean? But you're a new store, so you don't have to worry about the quote from the previous year because you just opened up. But you will have to beat your own numbers
Eventually, yeah, you're gonna have to start looking year over year, less week over week.
Oh man, I don't miss those days of being a manager, bro. That shit is hard.
It's been a challenge, man, but I love it. I love every minute of it, man. You understand? I love every minute of it.
Absolutely. I got to sign off, guys.
Oh, yeah, so Pat, so what
Yeah.
we do here is that we do kind of like a final thought. I mean,
Final
I'm
thought
sorry.
based
I don't
off
know
the
if
topic.
you guys are supposed to run all night. I wasn't sure how long
No,
you go.
It's usually about an hour, but it's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I know your time was limited. You got the Miami Vice face right now. You're trying to like, but yeah. So
It's Monday. Okay.
Let's do this. I got one more question for you. Chris will probably have one more question for you. They'll do a final thought. 5 more minutes. That's fine.
Yeah. No problem.
All right. Don't cheese me. All right. So anyway, my last question for you would be, what would be your message for a young kid? Probably that loves cheese and wants to get into it. What would be your message for them if they wanted to pursue a career as a cheese master?
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely continue shopping and consuming. You're a young kid where you're talking about a young professional, somebody that's just trying to get their first job or something. And then like look for a place that you'd want to work. Where do you shop? Like I pay attention to the places I shop at, and I try to understand the business, the people that are working there, why it works for me, why I'm comfortable spending my money there. So if you do that and you say, look, like maybe these guys will hire me part-time, or maybe it's like, hey, look, I'll come and I'll do some deli work. Like I want to kind of work with you guys. Is there any way you can bring me on? Like this, that, a lot of times, especially in deli and cheese, it's not a listed position that someone's recruiting for. A lot of it is word of mouth. A lot of it is, hey, do you have somebody? Like, can you give me a reference? You know anybody looking for work? So you never know if somebody's looking for something, because a lot of delis, cheese counters don't post it. If it's a one-off cheese counter. So I would say, talk to the people that you buy from. That's my biggest word of advice for everybody. Like anything that you're going to consume fresh, talk to your butcher, talk to your fish guy, talk to your deli guy.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds great. Chris, Ryder, you got a last question there for your buddy, old pal?
I mean, not a question. It's just thank you, Pat, for coming on the show.
Appreciate you, brother.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
I want you to make me a private personal cheese one day, right?
Yeah.
Whoa.
We were cool. Pat, me and you were cool beforehand, but I feel like when we both linked up in Dallas, I felt like we became really good friends. Over the course of the 2 months that we were around together, and I appreciate you as a friend for helping me out, and in my transition. It was a lot to take in. I made a significant jump from sort of being just a regular guy to like managing a counter, and being a very important person in the store. And you helped me definitely, with the challenges and all that stuff. So I thank you for that.
Of course.
Thank you for coming on the show and and sharing your cheese expertise.
Oh,
hell yeah, guys! Thanks so much for having me.
Yes. So Patrick, just any final thought before you leave, or you think you're all set up and all cheesed up?
I think we were all cheesed up. I mean, I think we touched on a lot of topics. I think that we covered a lot of ground, from like cheese production to like how do you get a job in the cheese world, but hell yeah, man, keep the conversation going always. That's what it, we're past the point where we hide information anymore. It's no longer like the secret is with me and it's all well kept. Like that shit is out there. So just continue to talk about stuff, be open-minded about food, and you know, pay attention to what you consume, and like enjoy yourself, man. It's food, it's fun.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you have it, folks. I mean, our guest has to leave. Pat, thanks a lot for coming on and letting the world know how cheese works. Chris Fighter in the house, letting know. Shout out to Dinner at the Round Table family. We out of here, man. Pat, you already know, man. We're gonna end it off with the cheese song. You know what I mean? Just to give a little tribute to the cheesers out there.
The cheeser.
We out of here, guys. Dinner at the Round Table podcast. You already know what it is, man. We out of here in the building, man. You already know we have the cheese, a master, the cheese enthusiast in the house, man. Chris Fighter, Nelly Nell, holding on the fort. Shout out to John Tavares, a la dueña.